Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today for some fun, some historic fun. That actually just saying that makes it no one. Don't say that to kids. That does not sound fun. We are here to have a good time. I have in my possession a 5th edition starter deck, and we're gonna open that up. But I figured before we did, I would just give you a little bit of history on the set. We talk about what's going on now. First thing you're probably going to notice if you're new to the game is these cards are all white bordered. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait, why are the cards white bordered? Well, back in the original starting days of Magic, all reprints were always done in the white border. And because they weren't the original black bordered, we kind of looked at white bordered cards as if they were lesser and garbo. And I still feel that way when I look at white bordered cards. I still go, the black border versions are better. I mean, we universally have black borders now. And part of the reason, in case you're wondering, on top of just the fact that it meant it was a reprint, why another reason people didn't like the white borders is they get dirty very easily. Now, we don't have to worry about that with this opening because it's a brand new sealed deck of cards we're going to be taking a look at. I know some people care a lot about values. This isn't going to be a value heavy style opening. In terms of valuable cards in the set, from the commons and uncommons, there's only a handful in each category. The Urza's lands, a few good blue spells like Counterspell and Brainstorm, and other than that, there's not a lot of value in the commons and uncommons. And these decks, unlike decks you can get now, commander decks and all this other stuff that have tons of rares, these decks only have 3 rares per deck. So it's a 60 card randomized deck where they shove in 20 lands, 40 non-land cards. This was supposed to be your jumping off point. I've never opened one of these decks before because by the time 5th edition came out, I was already right into Magic the Gathering and didn't really need a beginner starter. But I remember opening starters like that for Revised. So there are a lot of similarities. We'll take a look at the artwork and all that. Speaking of the artwork, 5th edition was the first set where Wizards diverged from the old way of doing things. It was the start of the new wave where originally artists actually got paid commissions, like royalties, on every printing of like their artwork. So every single time they printed a card with a piece of artwork on it, the person who did that artwork would get a tiny, tiny little payment, but those payments added right up. Original Magic artists actually ended up benefiting a lot. And funnily enough, you'd actually be better off to be somebody who had done paintings for commons and uncommons because they got printed a lot more frequently. So we'll see that a lot of the original memorable artwork from 4th edition, 3rd edition, Revised, Unlimited, Alpha, Beta, all that has been replaced by newer artwork. In some cases it's better, in some cases it's not. The set is actually the largest base starter set reprint set. Obviously in current times the mystery boosters are the new biggest reprint, but in terms of starter sets, core sets as they call them now, this is the biggest one they ever did. It's over 400 cards. It's about 450. The previous was about 350. So you're looking at 100 more cards. They yanked 100 cards out of 4th edition. So the 5th edition is basically made up of half of the cards from 4th edition and half brand new cards, not new to Magic, but new to the core, the core base sets, reprints from previous sets with a heavy lean towards Ice Age, okay? So, with all that information being given to you, hopefully that's a little bit of history to help you out. Now we shall dive into actually opening the deck, and I'm going to take my time and savor this, my friends. I invite you on this lengthy and enjoyable journey. All right, so what we've got here is a 4th edition deck, a 5th edition deck, and an Invasion starter deck. We will do a video in the future with this one. You'll notice this one's 75 cards instead of 60 cards, but I just had it there. I thought I would include it just to give you a little bit of a teaser there. And then this is just a comparison of what the 4th and 5th edition ones looked like here. You can see that they have some similarities. This one definitely stands out a lot more. So, I mean, we can look over the 4th edition stuff in the future. I just thought that it would be neat to show for a moment. So look at this. On the side, it says, Magic the Gathering is a card game in which 2 or more players duel for control of a magical plane using creatures and other spells. The object of the game is to defeat your opponent by reducing his or her score from 20 to 0. It's interesting that they went to reduce his or her score from 20 to 0. It doesn't have any sort of concept of that's your life force or anything. And it's interesting to note as well, we're dueling for control of a magical plane. And that was more the old school feel. And I do very much just love the aesthetics of these old boxes. Like, look at this. This deck contains 60 tradable game cards, randomly assorted, plus a rule book. It'll come with a thick little book. We will see inside. And look, that's how much they used to cost. The old school decks. Now it's got this little silver, not silver, sorry, it's clearly gold line that they have wrapped around here. But I always found that these, it's so annoying trying to get a foothold in actually unwrapping these. And I also don't want to be too rough with it, because let's be real, this is an artifact. Okay, here we go. I got a little bit of the top off so we can kind of get in there. I don't want to be too rough with it, because I mean, this is something that has existed for a long time in its sealed shape. And how often are you going to come across sealed product from 1997? If you're not like, I mean, if you're Rudy, then you live in it. The guy lives in a house built out of old products. So let us dive in. And okay, so the rares are right at the front, and we've already seen one. So you know what I think we're going to do is we'll just kind of flip it around here and go from the reverse direction. And we will save the rares for last. Thankfully, I know the rarities of cards without requiring rarity symbols, so we don't have to worry too much. So you can see, look at the size. Look at the size of the rule book that you have here. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. I intend to do videos going over some of these old school booklets, because I have a range of these all the way back to near the absolute beginning of the game. So very, very cool. Now let us take a look. Look at how crisp and flat and beautiful these cards are. All right, so we're starting out with Ashnod's Transmogran. Interestingly enough, I have actually been reading the old novels about the Brothers' War and the whole process of what's going on with Ashnod's Transmograns. This is really sad. This is being done to a living being here. So it's 1-mana artifact, tap it, sacrifice Ashnod's Transmogran, put a +1/+1 counter on target non-artifact creature. That creature becomes an artifact creature permanently. And the flavor text says, Ashnod found few willing to trade their humanity for the power she offered. Well, she didn't really have to find people who were willing, because as we will talk about in the story, she took lots of unwilling individuals. Criminals and other people were turned into armies of these and were just wiped out. And it's horrific to think about a human being turned into this. They're in like a gigantic, almost like pickling vial with green liquid around them. They've got this haunted, ghost-like look on their face. I know there are some people who wonder why I spend so much time talking about all the little details of a card, and part of it is actually there are members of my audience, as crazy as it sounds, who are blind and very much appreciate having someone describe what they're seeing there. So on top of already being someone who appreciates all the different aspects of Magic cards, and also somebody who talks a lot, it comes together quite well. And I appreciate those of you who like to take their time with me and enjoy ourselves. So, Grizzly Bears, 1 green and 1 for a 2/2, and it's got the original flavor text that I absolutely loved when I was a kid. Don't try to outrun one of Dominaria's Grizzlies. It'll catch you, knock you down, and eat you. Of course, you could run up a tree. In that case, you'll get a nice view before it knocks the tree down and eats you. And the artwork is pretty standard, pretty serviceable. It's just a couple of grizzly bears in the woods. Let's be real. This honestly doesn't feel super magical. Later on, they would choose to change things into like rune claw bears and have them have little sigils showing in their flesh that kind of emanated magic. And I approve of that change because grizzly bears feel very mundane. Dangerous, but mundane. Then we've got Krovikin Fetish. Oh man, I remember this originally from Ice Age. I remember finding the artwork pretty disturbing. 1 black and 2. For an enchant creature, this is an aura. Draw a card at the beginning of the turn after Krovikin Fetish comes into play. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. Some Krovikins find strength in the ears and eyes of their victims and wear such fetishes into battle. The flavor text is very direct, and the artwork, you can see 2 sort of like emaciated, tattooed, half skeletal hands holding this necklace of eyes and ears above like a reflecting pool, or is this like dunking it to be cleansed? I don't know. Either way, interesting to note. And back in the day, they did this with a lot of cards where you would draw a card on the next turn instead of the turn you played it, and it took the power level of the card down overall, and they don't tend to do that anymore. Now it's usually draw the same turn, right? Then we've got Dark Maze. 1 blue and 4 for a 4/5 wall. Now, to understand its ability, you need to understand that in the old days, walls had rules baggage that came along with them that weren't printed on the card. Anything that was a creature type wall, and summon is the old wording for creatures. Instead of saying creature wall, it would say summon wall. And I enjoy the flavor of summoning, but I understand the confusion that some people have when they're like, creature cards, I only have summon cards. So anyways, any wall creature automatically essentially has defender. Every wall has no ability to attack normally. However, this creature's ability is 0. Dark Maze can attack this turn as though we're not a wall. At end of turn, remove Dark Maze from the game. Stray not onto the path of darkness, or be lost forever. Baki, Wizard Attendant. And the artwork shows I guess this is supposed to, maybe this is Baki, the Wizard Attendant, just kind of in a maze. The artwork is just, I don't know, it just feels kind of like a dungeon, but the artwork never really excited me for this card. It's kind of like, all right. I guess maybe they tucked the lands into the middle. I love the freshness of these cards. All right, we've got Mountain Goat. 1 red for a 1/1 with Mountain Walk, and those are the old school land walks. There was 1 for every land type. And basically, if your opponent has a land of that type, your creature's unblockable. And the flavor text says, folklore has it that to capture a mountain goat is a sign of divine blessing. I just know it's a sign that dinner's on the way. And that's Klazina Jane's daughter, leader of the Order of the Sacred Torch. She is more concerned about eating that delicious goat meat. And the artwork's pretty straightforward. This is another one where it's just a mundane, like, seriously, you're a wizard. I'm going to get in a magical duel with another enemy. You know what? That goat up there that's just kind of perched on that cliff, he seems like he'd be good to get and throw into a battle. Come on, I'll be all sneaky and send a goat through the back ways. Take that, mountain boy. It's kind of funny when you evaluate it. Like, old school Magic was more silly in some ways. And it had a charm there. And you've got Dan. I remember seeing this card for the first time and being like, wow, 2 blue for 4/1, amazing. And then I read the rest of it and was like, this thing sucks. And it's a summon Dan. Double Dan action. The good old double D. Island Home. If defending player controls no islands, this creature cannot attack. If you control no islands, bury this creature. So it's pretty rough. I mean, it's only good if your opponent's playing blue. It makes sense from a flavor perspective where you go, yeah, it's a giant fish. How's it supposed to get anybody out of the water? But you would say that about a lot of blue creatures, and you just kind of have to accept that as part of the game of Magic. Catch good today. Start replacing crew tomorrow. This is a Fisher captain's log. It's like, man, we got a lot of we had a great catch today, but unfortunately, we lost a bunch of people. That's amazing. Terrible card though. Terrible card. Then we've got Fear. 2 black enchant creature. Enchanted creature cannot be blocked except by artifact creatures and black creatures. This is an ability you don't see that much anymore. Now, the artwork on Fear, it's kind of hilarious, man. Like that, you've got this crazy Cyclops up here in the corner, but he looks like way less harmful than a normal Cyclops. Everybody's like leaping away in fear from a bunny. You've got a little bunny. If you hadn't figured out what the artwork is, you've got a little bunny with the glow going on here. You've got a Cyclops leaping out of the way. You've got a spider leaping out of the way, a tiger leaping out of the way, and a wolf that actually looks like it's doing a can you believe this kind of selfie in the moment? This artwork is actually pretty funny, in all honesty. I don't remember, like, when this came out, I didn't pay as much attention to the artwork that came along with a lot of the cards. I don't think I ever noticed that everyone was diving away from a bunny. I dig it. Oh, dude, regeneration. We got old school. Maybe, do I need to put the cards face down so we don't have focus issues? I guess that works. Regeneration. 1 green and 1. It is an enchant creature. Pay 1 green, regenerate enchanted creature. The older versions of this, the whole text box was full. And I remember how clean and crisp this looked in comparison, where I was just like, dude, that is such tight wording. And the artwork's amazing. Quentin Hoover is a fantastic artist. I really enjoy his style. I don't know what this style of artwork is called, but you can see a druid here, and he is literally using green mana to re-knit his own arm. His arm has been completely like severed here, and he is generating a new one out of green mana and like binding nature essence, like made of these vines and things, directly into him. It's awesome. He looks like a Nordic druid, like a kind of like a Viking druid. He's got some dope jewelry. This is really awesome artwork. I'm a huge Quentin Hoover fan. Huge. Then we've got Ice and Bureaucrats. 1 white and 1 for a 1/1. Tap it. Tap target creature with power 2 or less. When one's word is law, one's whim is equally binding. Calmon, Ice and Bureaucrat. So you can tell these guys will just give people the runaround for their own benefit in addition to doing whatever their job's supposed to be. And you can see there are 3 of these bureaucrats, and clearly they've become quite wealthy from being corrupt, right? They're like sitting on golden bejeweled thrones in this position of power, while this poor little supplicant here is basically either down on his knees begging, or these guys have such a high seating arrangement that even standing up on like just normal stance, you have to put your hands up here on this and be like, please help me, give me back my daughter, we shall despoil her. All right, then we've got, oh, no, face down, remember. Then we've got Dirkwood Boars. Dude, I loved these guys originally. They're terrible, let's be real, but I loved them back in the day. 1 mana and 4 for a 4/4. I just love that they were beefy. And the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine. The herd ran violently. It's a Bible quote. Doesn't that feel weird? Like, look at this as a Magic card under the lens of today. It's literally a Bible quote on some boars. Like, they're trying to say why the boars are like 4/4, and they do actually have a bit of kind of a demonic vibe with the way their fangs are, like their tusks look, I don't know, just they've got the sharpness of almost like a vampire's fangs. But again, this is just some real world boars. So you have that issue of like, doesn't feel super magical, but I loved them for their beef. I've always loved big green beef. We've got Howl from Beyond next. 1 black and X. Target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn. This feels like a card that was under-respected back in the day, because this can easily be a blowout. You know what I mean? If you have a ton of mana, you can just waste your opponent with one of these. The artwork, I've got to say, is actually kind of meh to me. I don't know, it's like a Wolfman Merfolk combo, it feels like, just kind of like leaping and snarling, but it doesn't represent to me the massive power boost that you would get from a spell like this. So for me, this artwork is fairly underwhelming, not a win. Moving on, here we go. This is actually one of the cards, when I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there were a handful of commons and uncommons that actually have value. This is one of them. Brainstorm. 1 blue, it's an instant, draw 3 cards, then put any 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. And then the flavor text says, I reeled from the blow, and then suddenly I knew exactly what to do. Within moments, victory was mine, and that's attributed to Gutha Ebsadaughter, Keljoran Royal Mage. This, honestly, is some really cool flavor text to explain the concept. In the artwork, you can see this crazy diabolical looking wizard. He actually feels more like a black aligned wizard than a blue aligned wizard. And you can see this crazy storm emanating from behind and around his head. And even the top of his head, the coloration that they've used here, this pink and red, it almost gives a look as if his brain is exposed here. That's not what's going on, really, but it gives that kind of a feel. And his eyes and mouth have been lit up almost like he was struck by lightning, and it's illuminating him from the inside. And the concept of that, like this being the moment where you just feel it like a lightning blow, and then all of a sudden your mind is just flooded with knowledge and you know exactly what to do. Like, that is some amazing flavor, on top of actually being a potent magic card. This is a sweet grab right here. After that, we have a Saber-Tooth Tiger. 1 red and 2 for a 2/1 first strike. Flavor text says, I fear anything with teeth measured in hand spans. And that's a quote by our friend Norin the Wary. I do enjoy Norin the Wary, the preeminent coward from Magic the Gathering. Very, very cool. In the artwork, we have what looks like a very beefed up tiger, but it is just a tiger. So, I mean, Melissa Benson has done a reasonable job of painting a tiger, but I have to admit that it's just like, it's a tiger. I mean, yeah, I guess, like, I'm a wizard. I'm going to travel different dimensions, and I'm going to summon up tigers and throw them at you. That's kind of funny. Moving on. We've got, another greenie that I like back in the day. 1 green and 4, 3/5, Iron Root Tree Folk. Summon Tree Folk. The flavor text says, I'll show you how to handle the tree folk, the giant bragged, and he strode off into the forest. 2 days later he returned, his face masked in sap and a nest behind his ear. None dared ask who won. And that's from Azawarai, the Treeling. So for me, honestly, I like the original artwork for Iron Root Tree Folk. Now, I talked before about why we have different artwork in this set, so I accept it, but these tree folk look horrific. They look nightmarish. I don't like them. Like, I wouldn't want to summon these guys up. I'd be like, no, you guys creep me out, especially like, bro, where's, like, you don't have enough leaf action going on. You weird me out. You look like one of those weird scraggly squirrels that have lost a bunch of their fur. And it's like, I don't trust you, bro. Do not trust you. Moving on, we've got, look at this card's awful. Shield Bearer, 1 white and 1 for a 0/3 with banding. Banding is one of the least understood mechanics in the game, and I think part of the reason for that is because it actually operates differently on attack and defense, and nothing else does that. Flying doesn't work differently, like First Strike doesn't work differently, Double Strike doesn't work differently. There are very few, if any, abilities that have different functionality, but also similar functionality when you were using them on the offense or defense. So banning, very, very confusing thing for people. Maybe one day I'll put together a video explaining it. For me, I have no problems with it, but I also grew up with it. You've almost completed your 4 years, my son. Soon you shall be a Sky Knight. So this is cool in terms of flavor building, because this is a flavor text from a Sky Knight. And what happens is, in the artwork, you can see the shield bearer. This is someone's squire who bears this gigantic shield on their back, so that when they go and hop on their gigantic hawk or whatever they fly on, they are prepared with the gear. So you have to spend 4 years as a shield bearer before you upgrade. And you can see that their whole job is just bearing the shield from the fact that they're a 0/3, and the defensive concept is backed up by banning. So good flavor on the card, but it is a bad card. After that, we have Gaseous Form. This is a cool concept for a card. 1 blue and 2. It is an enchant creature. Enchanted creature neither deals nor receives combat damage. The flavor text says, and gives to Airy nothing, a local habitation and a name. And that's a quote from William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Old school Magic cards with their Bible quotes and Shakespeare and stuff, it is definitely different. The artwork shows a person cowering in their bed under their sheets or under a rug, while the lady of the house has grabbed up a spear and is trying to swat away a phantom creature. Now, this creature is in gaseous form, so you can see that what she is swinging is actually trailing through the spectral being and stretching out their gaseous form, actually at one point cutting a direct line right through it. This is really cool flavor from every perspective. The artwork does a great job of illustrating the concept of it and showing why the creature wouldn't take damage. The idea of using magic to turn creatures incorporeal like this is totally an amazing concept. I really dig this flavor. The fact that you can do it to one of your own creatures as a boon, or you can do it to one of your opponent's beefy creatures almost as like a curse style. I dig that a lot. Then we've got this isn't really technically in the top list of like more, it's not in the worth $1 or more category, but it's the closest you can get. This one over time will move up. Dark Ritual is a very iconic Magic card. Basically, 1 black for a mana source. This was one of the very few cards in the game printed with that. And the fact that it says mana source instead of instant means this can't be counterspelled. You literally could not counterspell Dark Ritual because it's a mana source as opposed to any other type of spell. So 1 black, it adds 3 black to your mana pool. It's pretty straightforward. It's a really strong mana boosting spell. And in the artwork, you can see what is very clearly illustrated, a Dark Ritual. You have a black mage with flowing black robes and big, awful, just vicious looking talons kind of curled down around as he's drawing up these arcane dark energies. There's so much power going on that his hair is actually whipping back from the energy that is being released. This is really, really cool. Honestly, I love looking at this old stuff, man. And the condition of these cards, they're pristine. They're absolutely pristine. This is a joy. I have to say, I know I'm taking my time with this, but that's because I genuinely enjoy it. I know some people just want you to like blow through all the cards, but I can't, guys. I can't. Oh, we've got Tarpans. You want a little horsey boy? You want a little, come on, focus on the horsey boy. There we go. 1 green for a 1/1 summon Tarpan. They hadn't unified creature types. If Tarpan's put into any graveyard from play, gain 1 life. And the flavor text says, a good Tarpan will serve you faithful and true. A bad one will kick you in the head. Was it a Tarpan that got me in the park? All right. Oh, wait. I made that joke and didn't talk about the artwork. Here you go. It's some horses running. Whatever. Tarpan ain't exciting. Funeral March. 2 black and 1. Enchant creature. If enchanted creature leaves play, its controller sacrifices a creature. Turn the key deftly in the oiled wards and seal the hushed casket of my soul. John Keats to sleep. Wow. That is some amazing flavor text. And the artwork is exactly what it sounds like. It's a funeral march. Everybody is dressed in black. You have a piper here playing his weirdly long kind of pipe. There's a bunch of little banners and they are transporting along a casket. So fairly straightforward, serviceable card. What's the next card going to be? What is this? Prismatic Ward. I don't think I've ever seen this artwork for it. 1 white and 1. Enchant creature. When you play Prismatic Ward, choose a color. All damage dealt to enchanted creature by sources of the chosen color is reduced to 0. So this is similar to giving a creature protection from a color, but it doesn't give protection from that color. It just stops all the damage that would be dealt. Now, the earlier artwork of Prismatic Ward actually had like multiple colors to show that kind of a concept. This artwork is a little bit weird in that you have this woman with her bright, vivid red cloak trailing behind her and her blade risen high like she is rushing forwards. And it looks like little arrows or darts are being fired at her head, but there's a little halo around her head, a little aura of light and power that's deflecting those blows off. And maybe they're being shot by this little dude in the back. The artwork is not very good at transmitting the concept of this card. All right, next we have Enervate. 1 blue and 1, instant. Tap target artifact, creature, or land. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn. Flavor text says, world's turn in crucial moments of decision. Make your choice. Gutha Ebb's daughter, Keljoran Royal Mage. The flavor text is all right. The artwork on this card is really, really cool, man. You can see this guy's face with all of these arcane runes on them. And you can see like they're only on the right side of his face. The left side of his face is bare of those runes. However, a bunch of energy is like one of 2 scenarios is happening. Either a bunch of energy is blasting into him, causing these runes to go all over his face and kind of keep him like tapped down and paralyzed momentarily, or this is him being drained of all the energy and all these runes that are along the right side of his face are actually being drawn out through these beams of energy off on the left side with this crazy background essence as well. Very, very interesting artwork. I approve. I like this a lot. Then we've got Eternal Warrior. I remember when I thought this was a good card. 1 red, enchant creature. Attacking does not cause enchanted creature to tap, so it gives a creature vigilance for 1 red. Which doesn't feel very red, does it, my friends? This definitely feels like a white enchantment. Warriors of the Tsunami Nido School spend years training to master the way of effortless effort. I thought the flavor text of that was cool, and this guy certainly looks as pompous as someone who's mastered the art of effortless effort. But this whole, I don't know, man, this guy looks like he's got like a very Japanese samurai kind of vibe to him, and there's a weird, like almost, what is this? Like a fancy modern art fan or something. Like, I don't know what's going on in this artwork. I don't understand at all how this equals not tapping to attack. I don't get the flavor of it at all, but it definitely does trigger the old nostalgia for sure. After that, we have Marsh Vipers. Ooh, poison tokens. So random to include poison when you don't have it as a major theme. And this set is huge too. We went over that. 1 green and 3 for a 1/2. If Marsh Viper damages any player, he or she gets 2 poison counters. If any player has 10 or more poison counters, he or she loses the game. So poison is an alternate win/loss condition in Magic the Gathering. And Marsh Vipers were brutal. I mean, 4 mana for a 1/2 is so garbage. But the fact that it would do two poison counters was, if this thing was out and uncontested, it was a real problem. And the Seraph Sob at Vermin Fangs in Human Gore Imbued. Edgar Allan Poe. Again, we have another real-world quote. Very different times, and it takes me back. I am absolutely loving this journey. Thanks for being here as we explore all this crazy old stuff. We got Raise Dead, 1 black. Return target creature card in your graveyard to your hand. And it's a pretty straightforward card. We've had this since the beginning of the game. And you can see what looks like a spirit being raised up out of some kind of crypt or interment. His white face just, it looks like he's not really enjoying the experience overall. It must be a painful experience to return to existence. You know what I mean? After that, we have, what is this? Death Speakers. 1 white for a 1/1 protection from black. The dead may be beyond the law, but speaking the wisdom of the dead will afford no protection. And this is by Calmont Ison Bureaucrat. Okay, so this is a religious order, and clearly they are at odds with the Ison Bureaucrats, I guess? I suppose? That I'm not 100% sure what this is going for. And the artwork shows, I guess, these individuals up here. This is the Order of Death Speakers with their crazy little coned helmets and spears. This one's not, I'm not 100% sure what's going on with this, to be real. Then we have Soul Barrier. 1 blue and 2. Whenever target opponent successfully casts a summon spell, Soul Barrier deals 2 damage to him or her. That player may pay 2 to prevent this damage. So in current times, this would say, whenever your opponent casts a creature spell, they take 2 damage from this, unless they pay 2 mana to stop that damage. That's how it works. It's funnily enough that successfully cast doesn't mean you can't counter it. You can still counter it, and the spell was considered successfully cast. Successfully cast just meant you actually paid the mana and declared the spell properly. The flavor text says, the soul selects her own society, then shuts the door. Emily Dickinson, the soul selects her own society. All right. The artwork is amazing. Look at all these like souls that are trapped by this crazy, like these lines right here, these zagging lines are the barrier, and these faces are all the souls trying to come through. And you can see in some areas, they've actually managed to burst through the barrier where the light is flowing through. Now I need to stop the camera for a moment and restart it because I can only record in chunks with this one. All right, and we're back. Let us continue as if nothing happened. Oh, right at the beginning of the land. So this will be a bit faster for the next chunk. So we have the mountains. As you can see, the land's artwork has changed. This is the first time they changed the basic land artworks in the core sets. Here is a mountain looking very snowy and beautiful. Honestly, this is a huge, huge step up from the original basic lands. Let's be real. John Avon's done an amazing job with this snowy mountain. Very nice. And then we've got a swamp looking pretty standardized. You got like some kind of yellowish, like will-o-wisp light kind of illuminating it from the back. A bunch of barren trees. One of them has fallen across the swamp. It's like, all right, that's not too bad. The plains that we've got here is just like a field of wavy grain, so that's not too shabby at all. Nothing too amazing, but nothing too unimpressive either. Then we've got the island. Now the island here is 2 big rock pieces just kind of jutting up with a little bit of green growth around them. It's interesting that there's like more negative space, it feels like, in this artwork than anything else. And I kind of like it. It gives the islands a solitary feel to them. All right, the lands from these are actually quite nice and different. Oh, look at this forest. This forest looks great. All these, there's just like an endless sea of treetops, and some of them look like they're slightly autumnal, or maybe that's just the normal color they go with. And you've got like a bit of either a sunset or a sunrise going on in the background here. This is a really nice looking forest. All right, then we've got there's multiple variations too. Okay, so now we have a mountain with forests set in the front here. This is not a snowy variation. Not going to spend as much time on the lands. Another swamp, again, with that kind of like, it's got a sickly kind of feel to it. You got these trees growing up out of the water and all these little like stalagmite kind of things going on. Then we've got another variation of plains. This one is looking like some kind of maybe worn, maybe this is worn path, maybe this is some kind of vegetation here, but it looks pretty chill overall. You can kind of see what might be turning into a mountain in the background there. After that, we've got a different island. This one has a wintertime vibe. It actually is kind of like the snow-covered lands from Modern Horizons, the snow-covered island. But I like this one a little more. It's more rounded and less jagged. It looks like a little kind of winter wonderland. Makes me feel cool and refreshed. Then we've got a different forest where all the, oh look, it's like a different time of day in the background. We've got the sun at a different level, and the trees look purplish with this kind of misty haze around them. Or is that just a different type of tree? Or no, it does kind of got a misty haze. I like that. That's a neat effect. Oh, back into regular cards and not the lands. We've got Evil Presence next. 1 black mana, enchanted land is a swamp. And you can see this little tree, right? This looks like what happened was an evil presence, it was enchanted over a forest. And the forest just kind of withered away into this sickly pool. Even the birds that are flying by, you've got all these dark birds. The tree is like drooping. There's one stunted tree in essentially a sea of filth. So very, very straightforward artwork that gives you the concept quite nicely. Then we've got Phantasmal Forces. I remember loving these guys. 4 power flyer. 1 blue and 3 for a 4/1 flyer. During your upkeep, pay 1 blue or bury Phantasmal Forces. These beings embody the essence of true heroes long dead. Summoned from the dream realms, they rise to meet their enemies. These guys look so cool. They have these kind of like peacock feather wings that I really enjoy, and they've got the crazy golden armor. They look dope. The idea that they are like an illusion that you have to maintain by constantly funneling mana into them is pretty cool. Then we've got, what is this? Arnison's Aura. Is that what it is? Arnison's Aura, sorry. 1 white and 2. And this is a multi-purpose enchantment. Pay 1 white, sacrifice an enchantment, destroy target enchantment. Pay 2 blue and 3, counter target enchantment spell. Play this ability as an interrupt. The flavor text says, cloak me in mystery, hide my names from my enemies, and let me draw from the well of power. Halvor Aronson, Keljoran Priest. So this is a Keljoran Priest who has come up with his own aura that is specifically powerful against other enchantments. And that would actually be some highly coveted magic. The artwork is pretty straightforward. You have a woman who is assumably wearing the aura as a cloak. It's got sort of a white, otherworldly kind of feel to it. It's a bit translucent and misty. I enjoy that. Moving on, we've got Fyndhorn Elder. Fyndhorn Elder. Gotta make sure he's in focus. 1 green and 2 for a 1/1. Tap him, add 2 green to your mana pool. And the flavor text says, do we know what we're doing? Yes. The will of Freyalise, Lena of the Elvish Council. And then you have what just looks like an old wise elf in a fine robe, just kind of pondering things. He's probably having some other members of the community asking him for guidance. Pretty straightforward, nothing too exciting, serviceable magic card. Then we've got Wall of Brambles. 1 green and 2 for a 2/3 wall that regenerates for 1 green. Flavor text is sleeping in brambles, elven phrase meaning plagued by guilt. Huh, all right. And the artwork is very straightforward. It is just a very rugged wall of brambles with a city kind of off in the background. This would have been a really obnoxious, hard to deal with card, honestly. Regenerators are a huge annoyance, just a huge annoyance. Then we've got Orcish Captain. Orcish Captain is 1 red for a 1/1. Pay 1 mana, flip a coin. Target opponent calls heads or tails while coin is in the air. If the flip ends in your favor, target orc gets +2/+0 till end of turn. Otherwise, that orc gets -0/-2 until end of turn. The flavor text says there's a chance to win every battle. This card is awful. It's not very good at all, but it is kind of fun in the way that it's like, oh look, we're going to take a massive gamble here, and maybe it'll pay off. But the downside is massively deadly. Instead of getting to boost your guys, most orcs don't even have 2 toughness, right? So this is going to wipe most of them out in 1 flip. Oh, the artwork as well. The artwork is a orc kind of shaking his fist at some other orcs Orcs are normally cowardly. These ones actually look like they're depicted in a little more brave fashion, so I guess that's the effect of the captain. Moving on, Ashes to Ashes. 2 black and 1. Remove 2 target non-artifact creatures from the game. Ashes to Ashes deals 5 damage to you. Kings and beggars, they end the same. Surrounded by stench, rot, and blame. Look at that flavor text. And the artwork, you can see 2 individuals getting just obliterated into ash. In the forefront, you can see a skeletal figure who's already way more through the process, and behind him, you can see a wizard who's screaming out in pain as he is essentially being disintegrated down into dust. All that energy radiating off of him. He's got an old Merlin feel, and he's just being obliterated. That's crazy. Unless that's supposed to represent the loss of you losing 5 life, and this guy in the back actually isn't disintegrating, but that's just like him screaming as he takes 5 damage from the spell. Either way, that artwork is really good. Really good. Then we've got Clockwork Steed. Clockwork Steed cannot be blocked by artifact creatures. It is 4 mana for what looks like a 0/3, but when it comes into play, you put 4 +1/+0 counters on it. So when it comes out, it's a 4/3. At the end of any combat in which the Clockwork Steed attacked or blocked, you remove one of these counters, and you pay X and tap it to put X +1/+0 counters on the Clockwork Steed. You can't have more than 4 counters like that on this creature, and only do it during your upkeep. The idea is like you've got to keep winding it up with a giant key, like wind-up toys. There are a number of clockwork cards, and it's an interesting concept. It's like an artifact where they've managed to give something a semblance of life, but haven't really fully managed to emulate it. That's pretty cool, you got to admit. And the artwork looks like a very, very mechanical horse running along with a herd of other regular horses, I guess? I'm not sure. Moving on. We have Urza's Bauble. Oh, here we go. Here's another card that's worthwhile. This one's actually worth a couple of bucks. So, Urza's Bauble, 0 to put out. Tap and sacrifice Urza's Bauble. Choose a card at random from target player's hand and look at that card. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn. And the Bauble's just some weird kind of alien-looking egg with swirly metal bent off of it and Thran glyph stuck on it. So, not too much to say about that. After that, we've got, oh, what the heck? It's a swamp. Okay, we've got a swamp and another plains and another island. I thought there might not have been enough lands earlier. Forest, I was just excited to get into the new cards. Mountain. We got a swamp. We got, oh, a different plains. This one is covered in snow with little tufts of grass kind of sticking up here and there. I like the different seasons of these lands. That's cool. We've got, oh, this is a different island. Again, this is an interesting choice where the island only really exists on one side of the artwork. You have the main chunk of the island and what looks like almost little mini towers branching off of it with a bridge leading out there. That would be a nice secluded place to hang out. I like that. Then we've got another happy little forest. Then we've got another ice mountain. Following that up with another swamp. And then another plains. And, oh, here, the rares! We're in the rares! Force of Nature. Yeah, boy. Force of Nature. Dude, I loved Force of Nature back in the day. 4 green and 2 for an 8/8 Trampler. During your upkeep, pay 4 green mana or Force of Nature deals 8 damage to you. It blinked and flower petals fell like tears. Harthar, sensing weakness, attacked, and his blood fell like petals. And this is written by a fairy bard. You may be wondering to yourself, why would I like this card so much back in the day? Back in the day of Magic, giant creatures arbitrarily had huge drawbacks, and Force of Nature was a giant beefstick. He was the second biggest creature in the game. So I absolutely loved him. This new artwork with this gigantic, like, tree folk style creature, kind of like bent over, engaged in conversation with this little sylph, this little fairy. I love it. I love the gigantic, powering, towering nature of the Force versus the fragility of this little sylph and the overall feeling of nature and life in this artwork. I mean, the original Force of Nature artwork does have a place in my heart because it's the original and nostalgia. But honestly, this is the best Force of Nature artwork. It's fantastic. All right. The other rare we got is Jamed Tome. 4 mana, 4 and tap. It's an artifact. 4 and tap it, draw a card. And the artwork in this, the book looks absolutely evil. You can see it's got 2 eyes and a little vicious looking jagged toothed mouth that's actually part of the book binding. And even the bookmarks kind of feel like they're the insides of somebody. Just like it's got that deep blood red color, and the artwork you can see, like, look at that, that's a heart with like all the veins and everything coming out of it. That's amazing. Like, this has such a dark feel to it. If this was made in the current time, this would probably be a black aligned artifact just for the level of viciousness that the artwork imparts. It's really, really cool artwork, honestly. And back in the day, this card was a huge deal because card advantage was massive back then. And we saw this earlier, Ankh of Mishra. This is, I mean, we didn't take the time to look at it though. 2 mana, artifact. Whenever a land comes into play, Ankh of Mishra deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Tawnos finally cracked the puzzle. The strange structures did not house Mishra's malevolent creations, but were themselves among his creations. Interestingly enough, in the book, they talk about Mishra shoving an Ankh into his belt. There's nothing Ankh-like about this artwork to me. Like, when I think of Ankh, I think of it's shaped like this kind of thing. You know what I mean? And this just looks like Dr. Fantabulous's contraption house of wonder and whimsy. Come bring your kids for a fun time. I mean, this is a obnoxious card, in all honesty. I hated this card. People put this thing out and just mess with you, play with this and dingus eggs and Armageddons and stuff. Overall, I gotta say, the rares from this are not valuable rares. None of these are really terribly valuable cards, but they do have a lot of flavor, and I played a lot with these cards in particular. I didn't really play much with this because I didn't like it, but definitely I played a lot with these, and this is some nice nostalgia. So I know I've been chatting a lot. Let's go ahead and head off to the wrap up for this video. All right, I gotta say, in all honesty, the card quality, absolutely beautiful. The cards look pristine and gorgeous. The white border looks quite nice when it's all crisp like that and you're not as used to it. You know what I mean? Like, I did mention the white border at the beginning of the video, and I found that looking at it, it does have kind of a nostalgic tickle to it. So I enjoyed that. The rares, admittedly, we didn't hit anything of big value, but we did get James Tome. We did get Force of Nature and Ankh of Mishra, whatever. So overall, I think that opening was pretty sweet. Let me know what you guys think. What were your favorite cards in this? Do you like white borders? Do you not give a crap about white borders? Is this deck older than you? Because in some cases, I know people who watch the channel aren't that old. You know what I mean? And by aren't that old, I mean 20. Oh my God, that is what I meant when I said it. I'm an old man. Okay, well, I've got to get back to my rocking chair and whatever else it is that old men do. I got to go do some Google research on what old shaggy-haired men are supposed to do with their time, okay? So before all this falls out and turns gray, I'm gonna get going. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members, and a special thank you to James P for sending me out the deck for me to open in that video. Very, very nice of you. Appreciate it very much. So, with all that said, I'm heading off. I will see all of you, my friends, very soon.